Okay, let's see how this turns out. See how this. What's up, world? I am playing with a new streaming camera this evening. Just arrived today, and so seeing how this whole setup works as I kind of test quality on YouTube. I don't see a real big difference. Like I definitely see it. Oh, there's Wolf the cat coming down behind me. I definitely see it on this side with the camera, and I'm doing it through Zoom. So I think I'm gonna have to play around with this a little bit. Well, in any case, hope you are having a wonderful evening out there in the world. Kyola Maltengan here, hanging out on this new moon and wanting to just feel into things in terms of the sensations and the experiences of this moon and where we are really transitioning into specifically this week. And so when I did my weekly rhythm reading, it was pretty potent to say the least. And so this week, tied to this moon, is a time of great power. It's a time of great potency. It is a time of personal empowerment. And so as we look at that, some things that we're really moving into as we really dive more deeply into this concept of our genius, of the fullest expression of the expanded self as an expression of the universe itself, is a shift in perspective, in identity, in who it is that we really truly, oh, that helps a lot. Sorry, I just realized that light was probably creating a bit too much and perhaps a little too harsh. Oh man, yeah, this is worlds better. Any case, this whole concept of all of this really is incredible to be present with. Like what happens when we are present within our own presence, right? Essentially the essence of who we are. And this moon is all about that. This moon is all about these new and renewing opportunities, about shifting from the old and getting into the new. And so 3 things that I would highly advise as we look at this moon and for the next few days is 1, taking a bit of inventory on our own personal energy, right? Where are the areas that we feel most exhausted, depleted by and within? What are those tasks, obligations, actions, people? And as we look at that, recognize that it's not necessarily the essence of who you are or who I am that made agreements to do or to fulfill any of that. Rather, it is that aspect of ego. And ego is going to be a big part of this process because ego, the identity, how we have created this version of ourselves largely based upon the world around us, external reference points, is what got us here now. And as we look at that, this moon just continues to further thrust us forward into and well beyond the edges and the boundaries of this ego identity. The ego is not bad. It's not negative. Often we, demonize it like it's something that is foul and vile, and it's really not. So when we look at this, though, we are looking at the edges of our reality effectively, and that reality is based upon our identity. So where is it that you feel depleted? Where is it that you feel exhausted? Where is it that you feel you're ready to let go, to release? because that comes into just identifying that is not nearly enough. The second part of it to really work with the energy of this moon is largely being able to now release stuff, right? And there's some things, agreements that we've made with ourselves to do this, that, and the other. At this point in time, though, is that something that really fulfills you? I'm going to say if it is depleting, then probably not. And so if not, how is it that you can release this? How is it that you can let it go? How is it that you can allow more space and the energy you may be investing in whatever this is to now be redirected, to be allocated someplace else? And so as then we go into that second part, okay? First part is where are the areas that you feel depleted and exhausted? See what that is for yourself. 2, how can you let that go? Now, obviously, there are certain things like I'm not uplifted by scrubbing toilets. I do like clean things. However, I'm not uplifted by it, right? That is something that I have taken on for myself. And I can hire someone to clean my place. That same energy that I may have invested in cleaning the bathroom, scrubbing the toilets, the shower, the sinks, cleaning the entirety of the house could be passed off onto somebody else. And that whole concept of Pareto's law, 80-20 principle, just because I can do it doesn't mean that I should. If it takes me a while, if that's not something that aligns, DeMartini talks a lot about this in terms of values and the values factor. And if it's not something that aligns with my personal values, then it's something that I can just pass on to somebody else because, back to Pareto's law, there's other things that I am meant to do. There are other things that I am most capable of doing, that I can do 80% of the work in 20% of the time because I have the life skills, the desire, the enjoyment, and the capabilities to be able to do this. And this begins to go into the line and the concepts of what at least I identify as the genius. So if then step 2 is getting rid of some shit, right? The boys and I, when we get a lot of toys and the toys begin to overflow out of the toy bin, then I know it's time to do a donation run. And I frame it around being able to pay it forward, pass on good, to put that out into the world because we are and continue to be so blessed. And so they buy into it. They really look forward to being able to, find which toys they're not necessarily playing with and then be able to pass that on to someone who will find more joy in that enjoyment, which inevitably means that they're clearing more place and space for other toys. So, I mean, it's a win-win-win all around. Right. And so when we go through that process, what are the things that no longer serve me rather than strictly the toys I don't want to play with? We find that there are things that we may have got as, a gift. Things that we might not necessarily have wanted, yet there it is nonetheless. And so what is our genetic inheritance? This goes into epigenetics. This goes into incarnational identity. There's a lot to all of this. However, there are a lot of things that we inherit, that we download with, that we no longer really need, nor is it that we even really want it. And so the second part is clearing out all that shit. What is it that you can release? And a way that I look at this is, say, for example, a great exercise that I would recommend doing is first and foremost setting a timer for 3 minutes on your cell phone or, whatever stopwatch. Start the timer and journal all the things that deplete you. And just think about the course of your day, of the week, of the month, of your year, and just list everything out. Taxes, emptying the garbage, washing dishes, whatever that is for you. List all of it out and just let it rip. Just get everything out. Let whatever it is that depletes and exhausts and you just find no joy in, lay it out all on paper. 2, identify one of 3 categories for each and every one of these. 1 has no place in your life. You can cleanly just get rid of it. 2 has a place in your life. Somebody else can do it. 3 has a place in your life and you need to still do it. Rather, you are the one who is fully capable of doing it. Of all things you can get rid of, do it. This is a great time to clean house. 2, on the things you can pass off onto someone else, see how you can make that happen and do it. You know, as I talk this out in terms of the toilet, I'm like, oh yeah, there's someone that I had made contact with a number of months back to clean the house. Like, I actually enjoy cleaning the house. However, just because I can doesn't mean that I should. The 4 hours a month that I spend cleaning the house, somebody else can do it. I can have those 4 hours for something else entirely more, not just fulfilling, also something that can be tied to bringing in more finance. And then 3, the things that still need to get done, though you don't necessarily, and you are the one that has the greatest capacity to do it, that's where we need to do a little shifting back to the values factor. One of the things that it recommends is how to make it relevant, right? And so identifying your core values is important to be able to align an activity with your values, right? And so cleaning the toilet, right? It's not something that I find really exhilarating, yet I find cleanliness and order fulfilling. I like my places, organized and open. The spaciousness, the capacity to walk into a room and not have a checklist of things that I got to do. I really enjoy that because it focuses my own energy and it creates very much like a feng shui through the room itself. And for me, as an energetic, that's incredibly important. Piles here, piles there. I'm not a fan. Thirdly, okay, so now we did that. Step 1, set a timer for 3 minutes, journal all the things that are depleting. And that can be people, that can be professions, that can be whatever. 3 minutes. Next, 5 minutes. And in the 5 minutes, you identify one of 3 categories and you, however you want to mark it. I tend to use multicolored pens. And so I'll have them each have a different designation for each of those categories. And so then I will circle, say, for example, things that I can just get rid of. That's red. That is gone, baby. It is out of here. I'll circle all the things that I can just get rid of. And that's it. Next, then I'll go to all the things that still are a part of my life and doesn't have to be me who is doing it. And then I'll circle all of those. And then lastly, in that 5-minute period, all the things that are a part of my life and that I have the greatest capacity to do, and I'll circle all of those. Those tend to be fewer in terms of what's left. And one of the things about that is then I can actually, from that, then begin to do a little deeper work on how do I align this task, this obligation, this action to something that I value personally. Now, caveat being, you got to know what your core values are. And I'll probably make a video about that as well. Lastly, let's do a little alchemy here. Now, since we're talking about the things that deplete, what are the things that you are renewed and uplifted by? What is it that you find fulfilling and exciting and inspiring? And let's look at that as well, because again, as the boys, when we go through this whole process of donating their toys, which brings so much joys, I have to throw another OYS in there. And one of the things about that is once you take the toys and you have that bag and all of a sudden there's not toys spilling out of their toy bin, then there's more space, right? And one of the agreements is if we want to invite more, then let's pay it forward, right? And so underlying teachings around the very core concept of aloha. Aloha as not just a core value, as a way of life, is to give what we have into the world openly and freely, and to allow that then to return whenever it does tenfold to ourselves or maybe to those who come after us. And there are things then, as we clear that space energetically, physically, in terms of our time and our own availability, that then allows space for other things. And when that happens, we want to consciously fill that. I'm up on an acre of property here in Kula, Maui, and it was dry for the last few years. And so a lot of things were dying. It's just too dry. And I'm a minimalist in terms of that. If we get water, we get water, and the water is what we get. So a lot of things were drying out, and that was a great opportunity for me to clear a lot of space. Now, the thing about nature is that it does not like open dirt just there. Nature loves to seed things, loves growth. And so whenever there is a void, right, I dig up all of these plants and I open up dirt so I can plant some cabbage or some eggplant or something. As I open up that space, if I do not almost immediately put something into the ground, nature will find a way. I'll start to see it. If I clear this, because I've done this a couple of times, I clear open a space and I'm like, all right, I'm going to plant some things here. And then I just get busy with life and I do this, that, and the other. And I come back like a week and a half later and I see not just the sprouts, like I see things coming out. Because just a natural tendency is that when there is a void, it creates a vacuum. So a void, open space, I've created now this spaciousness, something else is going to fill that. And we've seen that, right? I have a client who she last year decided to quit her job. And so she quit her job because she was spending, 45 to 60 hours a week, basically killing herself. And so we talked about all this. She made the transition. And one of the conversations that we had was being in such strong masculine flows. Masculine is all about doing things. It was going to be wise to shift into a place of being. Now, the thing about that is being is stillness. That feminine aspect is being able to sit, to be silent, and to be able to slow things in life. And when initially we do that, there's a lot of things to it. And often it's uncomfortable because we're not used to that. Local mentality, right? Plantation mentality. Oh, I'm lazy because I'm not doing anything. There's this voice of my grandfather saying or telling and expressing laziness of not doing anything. And that's just not simply the case. However, when we are not conscientious of protecting our own borders, our own boundaries, if you will, because we are in this open space, other things can happen, right? So she ended up then just taking some time for herself, and then almost immediately her mother needed support with something or wanted support with something. She ended up babysitting her niece. Like so many things where, flashing forward 6 months later, she was busier with not working than with working. And thankfully, it was things she did find joy in. However, it was not necessarily things that she directly chose into. So as we clear this space, step 1, step 2, what is it that's depleting you? Cut the shit, get it out. Step 3 is we want to fill our lives with joy, right? And so it's only day 2. Wow, this feels like it's day 4. Day 1, yesterday. So I started a experience, a vlog, maybe both, on this concept of materializing wealth. And so I tend to be in my, wizard mode more often than not nowadays. And I realize that part of what's happening is that I'm not as connected to materializing things for myself and the boys. I'm kind of off doing my thing. And so I felt that it would be good to not just express this through me, to also be able in this, trial of one, to see how this works, to lay out the process. And so part of that, since wealth is the base code frequency that I'm working with, was one, identifying what that is, and two, to just surround myself, to create an environment. Back to the plant, right? Plants. I have up here in my backyard apples and citrus and avocados and all kinds of other fruits that are growing fairly well. I do have this one plant which is not, and largely I come to find out because it's not necessarily the right climate for it, right? So we can have a tree, a plant, an organism that has the full capacity to be big and beautiful and fruitful and bountiful, and it just might not be in the right environment. Now, take that same plant, head down, about 1,000 feet, plant it back in the ground, it can just sprout and it can expand. It has what it needs. It's in the right environment, which is most conducive to seeing it grow and to thrive rather than just survive. And that exists for all of us. And so what we want to do, if ego is the identity that we created to survive, right, then essence is the existence of us as we thrive, right? And so it's a spectrum. They don't exist exclusive of each other. We're going between those two multiple times a day. And the more that we choose into our essence that wants to see us experience love, that wants us to be happy and joyous and blissful, and wants us to live a life of fulfillment, of freedom, of liberty, of connectivity, of alignment. Well, when that happens, then we're in a really good place. And so consciously then planting in that void, right? Clearing space in my own life and consciously planting in that void what it is that I truly want to seed. Be the seed you wish to change in the world? No, something like that. Anyway, then is spending a heap of time with my boys. And that's been phenomenal. We made a video yesterday. I was working a bit today. However, we got home and we were just playing with ourselves and the cat and the dog. And so, that's the life I want to live, is just being able to come with, those that I love and to spend time, quality time, to just really connect. And it is something that is the environment that I am most able to truly live my best life. So what are those things for you, right? If we're talking, we're not just going to talk about the doldrum pieces of, oh, I don't like this. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, I hate doing this. None of that. We want to look at things full spectrum. And when we do, then we have not just more information, it's actually helpful, right? If I am exhausted by, say, doing my taxes, then once I decide to pass it off to somebody else to do, then what is it that I want to put in there instead? Like, what are the activities? What are the ways I want to live? And so that last part then is looking at what that is for yourself. And I would say really look at some of the things that you haven't done recently, perhaps some of the things you said you always wanted to do, and just to experiment. Like right now is a really awesome time because we get to play with all of this. So we get into a new moon, and new moons are interesting, right? Because, It's the absence of light. The moon is still there. It's just not reflecting light as it typically does, just in terms of the placement. There are different perspectives on it. In traditional Western occultism, for example, the new moon is a great time for undertaking, new projects. In the traditional Hawaiian perspective, using the Hawaiian moon calendar, which was and is an incredibly sophisticated relationship from a lunar rather than solar perspective around the moon, it's a time for stillness. It's a time for reflection. And so I often sit somewhere in between. I like to consider all things and kind of use my own, intuition to feel into what feels best. And so it's a matter of being able to really reflect, rather introspect. And then from there, being able to set intentions that really come from a place of deep connectivity and can lead into a space of even more magic, more wonder, and more love. All right. 25 minutes. I feel like that's a good amount to share for right now. Yeah, I'm liking this camera, though it looks like crap on YouTube. So I've got to figure that out. It doesn't look like a whole lot of difference. On my screen here, it looks great. It's not all pixelated and jarred. On YouTube, it looks like crap. Okay, well, I got more to figure out on all this. I'm going to reflect and introspect on this and then set some intentions on figuring out why it doesn't directly translate. That's it for now, though. Love and aloha. Take care. And ahui.